the conversation stirrer, tech executive, strengths coach, and author, Foluso Gbadamosi. If your hands are still there, celebrate her. Woo! Welcome, Foluso. Delighted to have you. Your chair is coming, yes, over there. Joining Foluso on this panel is the Human Settlement Officer at UN Habitat, Dr. Omoayena Odunbaku. Please welcome her, and I receive your forgiveness if I didn't pronounce your name right. Thank you so much for your understanding. Please celebrate her. Everyone who is sitting around where she's coming from, make some noise there. Like, one of our own is going up there. Come on, come on, come on. The person who is coming next, just because they played this kind of song now, she has to give us some moves to it. She's the Executive Director, Women in Management, Business and Public Service, WIMBIZ. Welcome, Hansatu Adegite. This one is for you. It's for you. It's for you. It's for you. Woo! They want what? Excuse me, please. Excuse me, please. She's a military woman. And she has given me an order. She said Naija music is what she wants. Naija music. We are patriotic to Diana. Don't you know Diana Ross is an Igbo woman? You don't know? She's Igbo now, with partly Ijaw and Yoruba inside. Please join me and receive Ngozi Edozien, who is joining this panel right now. And she represents everything that this conversation is around. She's a woman who sits on boards, from Stanbic IBTC Holdings, to Invivo Partners, to Diageo, to Imperial Boards PLC, to Bank of Africa, and more. And she doesn't have two heads. She has one. She'll be sharing with us how some of us can attain to this and give value like her. Welcome, ma'am. What a delight to have you. Madam Moderator, for the next 40 minutes, it's over to you. Please welcome once again Foluso Gbadamosi. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, good afternoon. I hope that we've been having a great time so far. Yes, awesome. Okay, so let's jump right into it because as you can see, we don't have much time. And I know that you ladies have a lot to say and we have a lot to learn. So let me first of all start by just welcoming you gorgeous ladies and jumping right into it, right? So a lot of people feel like having inclusive boards, women on boards, is like lip service. Is there really any value to it? And I know that the three of you have experience. So let's start from our lady who Joyce said doesn't have three heads but one. Can you just give us some insights into your experience of having inclusive boards and how it benefits organizations?
Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see you. And Guardian and Madame, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you all today. So firstly, I think the first point I'd like to make is that for me, the first foundational issue is that a diversity on boards actually allows you to make better decisions. And it doesn't matter whether it's female diversity, whether it's diversity of experience. What you actually need to make the right business decisions, oftentimes, and to steer a company in the right way is what I call diversity of thought. And oftentimes, many companies don't focus on the importance of diversity of thought to actually ensure that they are bringing in the right perspectives to deal with the numerous business problems that their companies will face. So first off, a board has to be open to the notion of diversity of thought. And you will not get diversity of thought if every man on the board looks the same, thinks the same, has the same background, is the same age. You know, a bank should not have only bankers as their board members. So that's my first point. You are trying to go for diversity of thought. The second thing, if you build on that notion, women often have different ways of approaching problems and situations from men. So what you're looking for is not so much that, oh, I must have women It's that I need a different perspective, a different means of analysis. And the other thing is that women's career trajectory means oftentimes that they have had very different experiences. So by bringing that perspective, experience, you're bringing diversity of thought, and therefore diversity of challenge and analysis and decision making. And I think the last thing I'll say is, why do you even want to do that? Diversity and diversity of thought and female diversity has actually been shown to have a positive impact on financial performance and also on risk management. And lastly, on your ability to attract and retain the right talent. And I'll pause on that last point. It is not a secret that today, the school leavers and university leavers who tend to have the best performance are female. People want to go and work in organizations where, in a way, they can see themselves. So if you're a company that all you have, 97% of your workforce is male, they all look the same way, they all came from the same point, you are unlikely to attract the talent that you want. And you need, women are more than 50% of the population. They are often the highest performing students leaving university. So if you want the best talent coming in, you also have to give them an environment where they feel that they can thrive and grow. And people often want to go and work in places where they see themselves and they see themselves succeeding. So that's, to my mind, why you want women on boards.
Thank you so much for that. Hansatu, your thoughts on that?
First of all, let me also congratulate Guardian for the Women's Festival. Lady Ibu, always a pleasure to see you. I think, for me, I always like to look at statistics anytime I'm thinking of the realities on ground. And so when you look at the global statistics, for example, it's about 19, and that's from the International Finance Corporation, it's about 19% of course, global boards having female representation on their boards. And out of that 19%, it's only about 6.5 that are actually CEOs of most of the global firms. And that already begins to show you that it's not just an issue that is prevalent in any country, it is a global issue. And when it comes to women on boards, and I do agree with all the points she has said, but I just want to give some practical examples of the differences diversity, equity, and inclusion can make when it comes to serving on boards, and where you have some level of balance. First of all, we do identify that from a population point of view, we almost are split 51 to 49% in a country like Nigeria, where you have over 207 to 210 million citizens. And what we have now seen is that when you have boards that are not diverse, a large chunk or a large population of the women or those that are people living with disabilities are not properly represented. So when you are thinking of products, services, things that will cause some inclusion and also return on investment, there's always a large percentage that are excluded. And so you look at also return on investment, for example. I recall some time ago, I was at a conference, long time ago, about almost 20 years ago, and the lady that was speaking was on the board of MTN. And as at the time, she was the only female on the board of MTN in South Africa at the time. And they were going through some challenges financially based on the competition with Vodacom. And while they were having that meeting, they now asked, they were asking for what can they do. And she, being the only voice there, now said, well, maybe we should think of expanding outside South Africa. Now, logically, it doesn't make sense. You are struggling a bit where you are, but because she's on that board and thinking from a different perspective, She was looking at Africa as a larger virgin market. And so that contribution is what caused MTN to expand. And see what MTN has become today in Africa. They are dominant more in Africa than they are in South Africa. And that is the kind of thing diversity can do, because that turned around the financial future, obviously, of that organization. And I will also say that when we look at a nation like Nigeria, we have seen that, well, from the statistics or the research of the Nigerian Bureau for Statistics, that at least 65% of Nigerians are multidimensionally poor. It means that the solutions to poverty lies in a lot of goods and services that will come from different organizations. And we all know that women, as well as people living with disabilities, are people that have a heart for the population. So if we have more people on board, you will see that a number of solutions will come through products and services, as we have seen in the banking sector, that embrace women. Because I know that a lot of female leaders in the banking sectors, from those that serve as chairmen and those that served obviously as CEOs, were the ones that put into different policies consideration for women that are, especially entrepreneurs, that need banking instruments without things like collateral and the rest. So that would be my contribution for now.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Hansatu. Doctor, can we hear your thoughts as well?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for hosting us. This is amazing. I think we're tired of looking for a seat at the table. Now we are creating tables for ourselves. So a round of applause to the team. I'd like to start with both presenters, their submission very valid. I won't want to repeat them. I would like to start with what Tunde said. He said empathy is a gift. And who has a natural gift of empathy, the male or the female? Can I hear you say the male or the female? Who has the gift of empathy? Female. So that's why we have a seat at the table, typically. And the devil is in the detail. You see those things that the male can't see because they're always in a hurry. The woman will see it where she's seated from. You know, like you're buttoning your shirt and you're going, your mother calls you back to say, no, your last button is not. That is the role of. And that is how we dot the I's and we cross the T's in those reports that they try to churn out, and we save those organizations the embarrassment most times. The next one is contextualizing issues. Women, we know how to contextualize it. Oh, if it was Dada, Dada would do it differently. And if it was Shegun, I think Shegun is a better manager. Because we have children, we groom, and we understand the strength. We audit people's characters. And so because of that, we can assign duties. I will not give Shegun what I'm going to give Anita. And I will not give Anita what I'm going to give to Shegun. And we all know that assigning tasks saves us money and time. So that's why when we're on that board, we do better. Then we're also the first or the direct recipients of decision making. God forbid, on that board, if they're going to lay off people, the women will bear the brunt more. Because the man is coming home, he's aggressive, he becomes socially disrupted and all of that. Then she has to now. So because of that, we think we're very futuristic and we look at things. Then if you look at the innovation, pharmaceutically, medicine, were done by women. Take, for instance, the pill, you know, like the contraceptives and etc. It changed the whole dynamics of business, of entrepreneurship, of even the American dream, the boom. People could go on maternity. You know, people were scared of hiring women before because they had to go on maternity leave every other time. But I don't like showing numbers, maybe because I've done PhD and I think more about the quantitative, the hows, the whys, the where. So why are these women doing these things? They're doing these things because they are the first people to bear the brunt of it. And once we are there, we are innovative. We solve the problem, not only for ourselves, but for the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for that. I think that we've looked at it from different angles. We looked at the statistics, the practical, and you've also shown us the soft side of it as well. Thank you so much. So my next question is this. There are many amazing women in the room, and they want to know, how do they position to get onto boards? And I know that all of you can answer that. Hansatu is laughing, so let's start with her. Hansatu, I know that you have a lot of information on this. So just let the women know practical ways that they can get onto boards.
Thank you. I think one of the things I always advise people is that you must identify the network or the industry that you belong to and join any association or any organization that is within the context of your core area of expertise. The reason is because most of the decision makers are in that network. So for example, if you are somebody that has a legal background, you must be a member of the Nigerian Bar Association. If you are an engineer, be in the Society of Engineers and so on and so forth. And when you join those organizations, don't be invisible. Volunteer. Just be a part of something. One of the things that has worked for me is that I've been an avid volunteer for over 30 years in different kinds of organizations. So I've always learned a lot from, especially those that were way ahead of me. And so it just helps you to be in that network. When opportunities come up, your name is mentioned and things like that. The other thing is that you must build your capacity. Most people don't realize that when it comes to board kind of nominations and recommendations, there are certain skill sets that they're looking for. It's not just about your experience, but also certain skill sets. And so you must build your capacity in that area. One advice I received some time ago from, of course, a professional woman is that you should identify the kind of board person you want to be and look for women that are occupying that position. And then go on their LinkedIn or anything, their profile, and find out what type of qualifications, what type of schools, what was it that they did to prepare themselves. Now, it can be aspirational. You may not be able to afford it at the time, but because you have taken note of these things, you can begin to aspire towards them. I'll just mention these two so that I don't take all the points from my fellow speakers.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm going to add a completely different perspective, I hope. And that is, I've been very fortunate that practically every single board I have been invited to join, and I wouldn't even use the word invited, I interviewed and I was found by headhunters. So what is a headhunter looking for? So most of the boards I'm on, there's a very clear brief of the kind of board member that they are looking for. It has to mention skill set, experience, profile that they are looking for. Some of them, I don't know anybody from Adam in those countries, in companies, I should say. So I've been on a number of international boards, South Africa. I sit on the board of a FTSE 50, a company called Imperial Brands. I sit on the board of a Pan-African bank that is Moroccan. So on all of those boards, what they were looking for was somebody that had a fairly deep experience in creating transformation, right? And I was a partner at McKinsey & Company doing mostly transformation work. They wanted somebody who had had deep financial experience, been a banker, and PE. And they also, the Moroccan board, their main foundation was that you had to be a fluent French speaker, which I am. So I often give this perspective because I get a lot of young ladies who are coming to me and saying, you know, I need to build my network and all of this. And I come from it from the experience or perspective, which is first work on what you bring to the table. Because it doesn't matter who you know, if you are not bringing that perspective, that experience, and that background, and it is a board that is quite serious about bringing that diversity of thought and perspective, it doesn't matter who you know, you will not get there. So I think my biggest advice to young women is work on yourself, work on your capacity, and build the experience and the perspectives that people are going to be looking for. So as you direct your career, also think forward. Two, I say that, you know, don't be in a hurry. Because when I was 30 or 35, I wasn't looking to be a board on, I was just trying to build my career and my experience and put things in my head that people were going to benefit from. And I have to say that I didn't really start being on boards till I was, you know, in my mid-40s. And it was part of the work of my job, right? But I had built experience having to serve boards because as head of strategy at Pfizer Inc. in New York, one of my jobs was to actually create a lot of the work and the presentations that the board actually used to make decisions. So build your experience in your career. Don't be in a hurry. You don't have to be on a board at 30. And you may not actually have the capacity, though youth is good, because again, it's a different type of perspective, but they want to know your experience and it has to be founded on something. 2, or 3, I should say, is that yes, you should build your network, but a lot of that network comes from the professional experiences that you have built over time and people that you know. One network that people often don't build, though, is to think about how you build a network of understanding headhunters, because some of the best board positions come from headhunters and their board practice. So if you don't know any, you may want to begin to build that network. So it's not so much the people around you, but it's also the people who are going to be looking for you that I would also I would look at. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So you both given us some really great tips, and I hope you're all listening and taking notes. Doctor, what are your additions?
I think the first one for a young girl, ability to dream. If I don't dream and see myself on the board, on the table, maybe I won't work towards being on that table. So I always tell people, sky's your limit, but your ability, conceptualize that going to be the best in my career, and you work towards it. So be your best self. How do you become your best self? They've said, build your capacity. And while you're building your capacity, you have to build wealth wisely. Building capacity is not cheap. There was a lady the other time, CFA. To write your CFA exam now, you have to save. So women have to also be prudent with your time. It's not every Owambe you're going to go for. It's not every Ashwebi you're going to buy. And I think last but not the least, on my list, I have a whole inexhaustive list, but it's deliberate mentoring. The ability to make yourself available to be mentored. And most times we think mentoring only comes from people we can benefit. These days I hear a lot of, you need a sponsor. You need somebody to call your name when you're not in the room. But the $1 million question is, what have you done, to merit that person's ability to vouch for you? Are you putting in that effort to say, oh, Omo is not here, but I know Omo is going to do it? How are you investing your time? And also we have peer-to-peer mentoring. You could have a mentor in your team, same age, same qualification, but that person might have something you don't have, so you could rub off on each other, especially women. We really don't get peer mentoring. I'm sorry to say this, but it's the truth. We have more male mentors who are not in the same shoes as we are. The male mentor is not being pressurized to get married, when she's 26 or 27. So then also sometimes our mentees can be our mentors. Sometimes those tiny details can come from somebody you are mentoring. And she's telling you, oh, no, doctor, this time this is not you. So we shouldn't see ourselves as only benefiting top down, but we could also benefit from bottom up. Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to quickly just add something to what you've all said. I think that voluntary board positions are also a good way for people to learn. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but there are many organizations that look for volunteers, people that have certain skills, smaller organizations, NGOs. It's also a good way to practice, and start to learn and develop your skills and capacity as well. And for women, even though you say that there's a lot of male mentors, I think it's the time of the women. I don't know if you all agree. Because there are so many female organizations that are pushing mentorship for women, and it's really about us being intentional about finding those organizations and leveraging what they are giving to us. So for me, it's the time of the women, okay? So let's give ourselves a round of applause, because it's our time, Yes, it's our time. All right, thank you so much. So I have one more question, I think, before we go into Q&A because of time. And I want to ask you ladies, because I'm sure that there are some business owners in the room, and not everybody understands the value of having, whether it's an advisory board, or just something to start their business in the right trajectory. And I know all of you know the value of boards. So can you just talk to people like that? Let's talk about, like the SMEs who might not have a board yet, but they are doing great things, and they are thinking to themselves, isn't a board for big companies? Isn't it for listed companies? What are your thoughts on that? And what are ways that those kind of companies can begin to form boards?
Thank you for that. And I'll go with your last submission where you said volunteering. In this part of the world, we don't see it as a big deal, but I thank you for pointing it out that we now have more social enterprises, non-NGOs working towards that. So if you're an SME, you can look at your family member, who you can say, oh, you just finished accounting, can you please volunteer on my board? So when that person is going to EcoBank or is going to GT, she's not going with no experience, but she's going with 6 months, 1 year. So we can actually, encourage people to actually go on those things like that. And secondly, how do we now attract more people? I tell people I have 24 hours. I have one idea. But if I have 8 people, that means I have 24 times 8. Because that person on her way home is talking to the driver about the new product we've just launched. And when she's coming back, she's coming with 24 hours times 8 times 8. So that is geometric progression. So by the time I'm having my next board meeting, I'm having 1,000 ideas in my room, as against having only my idea, which had 24 hours. So I'm just buttressing the value of
I'll try.
So basically, because women, we multitask, we know how to do it. And in terms of our business, we should actually imbibe those kind of values to know that we can't do it all. And the Yorubas will say, I'm a fogbon, logbon, shogbon. That means you don't have everything. You have other people's, yes, too. And that's how you have great products, not only I can do it. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll piggyback on some of the points that you've made. I think the first thing you've said, and we've all said in different ways, exposure and experience are really, really important. And one of the things that I love in many multinational companies and abroad is that they recognize that for their executive members, executive leadership, the next stage for them is indeed board directorship, and you need to actually be developed. So it's very common outside of Nigeria to have on boards a sitting CEO. And it's also very common for companies to take their executive directors or others and encourage them to be on the boards of small companies, and it's part of their development plan because they're preparing them for something bigger. So I would look at the opportunity if you are an executive or you're somebody whose aspiration is to do a lot of boards, the opportunity to be on SME boards or volunteer boards as part of your personal development plan. And you will learn what I call sort of that director presence, leadership presence, by already functioning on one of those. So look at it as an opportunity, whether it's paid, not paid, to develop yourself and prepare for the next level. Why would an SME want you? If you've already got that type of experience and you go back to the benefit of diversity of thought, it's very lonely being a CEO or an executive, especially in a small company, because you're now jack of all trades and you need help. And so somebody who has that perspective from a larger, more institutional business can actually help you institutionalize your business, help you with your decision making, and improve, ultimately, performance. At the end of the day, all of this work is about performance. And there's a statistic which is very important, which I believe they're the 500 companies on the S&P 500, the 25 that are run by female CEOs and who have significant female membership on their boards outperform the 475 that are run by men and who have a preponderance. So at the end of the day, you want that help, that diversity of perspective, people on your board, because it's a business. You have to perform. And the same thing if you're running an NGO, you need to perform. And whatever can help you perform better, you really should focus on doing.
I think another thing we sort of need to note, and I'm thankful you talked about the SME, is that most of the time, especially on this side of the world, a lot of people start businesses based on challenges they're facing, and so they just hop into a business. Or when they're starting businesses, most of their boards are made up of their unborn child or their 9-month-old baby, their brother, their sister, and things like that. So they already make it a family business of inexperienced family members, right? And so most Nigerian businesses especially are like that. And you also have all those motivational platforms that tell you, just start that business, and you just see everybody starting a business. Now, sustainability of a business is much more different than starting a business. And so when we're talking about board leadership, it's about how do you now help your business to be sustainable? And that is where you now need experience. Now, most people say to me, because I hear a number of SMEs say, well, I don't know who to put on my board anyway, because even if I ask this, and this, they won't serve on my board. For SMEs, I would say focus first on advisory board. And for you to focus on advisory boards, there are different ways to go about it. Number one, I will come back to that again. You can leverage your network. In Nigeria, for example, you have, of course, WIMBIZ with their Women on Boards mentoring program. You have Institute of Directors. I know that they also have a mentoring program that has started. You have ICSAN and so many other organizations like that that are Society of Corporate Governance also, that are all about boards. And so what you can do is, even on your own level, you can join one or two of these organizations, and sometimes you can even be bold. There's nothing wrong with sending an email to any of those CEOs to say, I'm a young SME, I just want to be a case study for you people. I want you to give me some board members to help me pivot, and let me come and give my testimonial maybe at the end of 2 years. So you need to take some proactive action as an SME and just do something that will help you. So they will be challenged, but you will also gain from free mentoring. And then sometimes you can just look within your network, whether it's church, whether it's your alumni and things like that. Look for people that have the skill sets that you lack, and then also sort of put them on your advisory board.
Fantastic. I mean, we've gotten some super practical tips from this session. Anybody that's looking to be on boards, if you don't have tips from this session, I don't know how else we're going to help you, because they've given you everything. I mean, thank you so much, amazing ladies. Okay, so we have about 9 minutes left, which means it's time for Q&A. So do we have any questions from the audience? If you have any questions, let us know. Any questions at all? You're all board ready? You don't have any questions? You're ready to sit on, okay. So we have a lovely lady in the back who would like to ask a question. I think she might need a microphone.
This is addressed to anyone, really. On LinkedIn, I get a lot of these unsolicited invitations to join these organizations, soliciting. It's really like heavy marketing. I mean, I'm thinking, how do they know about me? Should we trust them or do more research? I mean, there's a lot of that going on LinkedIn, and you just don't know what's what, really. So I just wanted to get an opinion about that. Or should you go seeking out for it, because obviously they get commission or fees or something. So I'm a bit suspicious, and I haven't followed any of them up. So, but I do need to make more effort, I must say. So I need to speak to you later.
Well, I presume you're talking about the groups that are sort of, oh, I have a board opportunity for you. Is that what you're saying? Or
Membership platforms. She said she's talking about membership platforms. So people just
yes,
kind
of all of those,
direct marketing you. You
yes.
don't know them, they don't know you, and they're asking,
Look, I think I always investigate in terms of, somebody sends me something, I'll read it. And if there's something that really tickles my fancy, I may follow up to learn more. LinkedIn has the best SEO of any platform, and that's probably why they're finding you. So I think it's always worth it to look and learn. I know that there are some very reputable organizations. There's an African Women's Board Directorship Program. So I think you have to just look and be a little bit suspect and see if they actually have some merit. You know, I wouldn't brush them all off.
So make sure that you're there when you see them. If you want to add something. Okay, thank you so much. I think there's another question.
Yes, thank you so much, amazing women. I'm going to just tap into the pearls of wisdom on the stage and maybe set a bit of a practical question. So, join the board. I know that I'm meant to be there. I'm the youngest on the board. I know that I'm competent. Everyone else on the board are veterans. They're much older. And I guess just asking, from your experience, how would you approach board meetings and board conversations, knowing that you're coming from people with maybe a little bit of an archaic understanding, traditional ways of thinking, and I really want to come in and assert myself. But at the same time, I'm very conscious of the fact that you don't want to, there's some lines that you probably shouldn't cross. So really the practical question is, what are some ways of getting in there without being too pushy, but at the same time making sure that you are truly asserting yourself and yeah, paying your way almost, if you like. I hope my question makes sense. Thanks.
Emotional intelligence, you need to know who is the aggressive person, who is the calm person. I tell people we are all politicians on that table. So push comes to shove, you are going to get voted for or voted out. So you need to know who is in your corner, who is not in your corner. Sometimes I have that little paper that I scribble and Then being on the board is a lot of work. You have to do your work overnight. You have to be double ready. That's what I call it, super ready. The men sometimes just get in and talk their way out to say, la, 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 la. But you, for every figure you put out there, be rest assured they're going to double check. And the moment one goes off, almost everything you see at that meeting will be double checked. So you have to be super ready. So I'll allow the rest to talk about it, but the two key things I think I need to put out is your emotional intelligence, which has to come. Even if you have a very high level IQ, if you bungle your emotions there, like you break down and start crying doesn't, make you veto your thinking or what you want. So your emotional intelligence followed by, so much work, preparedness. Like Boy Scouts, Abigail's Guide, be prepared.
I think, and I've been there, but I think one of the things I want to say is that you are on that board because somebody felt that you have value to add. And so when you sit on that board, you must know that there is something you have to contribute, right? But just like she said, one of the things I know with such boards is that you first have to study the dynamics of everybody on the board. And then you have to think ahead of your own contributions. One thing I learned from Mrs. Ibukuna Woshika, she said that anytime she is put on any board, that she doesn't start contributing immediately. That she uses the first few meetings to really understand everybody in the room. She listens to everybody's contribution, and then she just likes to chip in that one value, that one thought that she feels is everything that nobody else has looked at. And that because of that, at the end of the day, people tend to want to listen to her because she's now touching some pain points that others did not think of. So I think you may want to look at, yes, their experiences are there, yes, they know it all, but the world too has changed and is pivoting, and then you are that part of that change. And then anytime you make that sort of contribution, just chip it in when you feel the time is right.
I have to agree with my colleagues. What I can add is that you really, whenever you go to your board meetings, you need to have done your homework and really know your onions and your papers very well. 2, I think it is important to pick your battles, right? You've got to stay firm on your principles. But there's some that you probably know already are going to go another way. Pick the ones that you know you will not let go of. Pick your battles. 3, you are there to contribute value, performance. You're not there to play politics. If it's wrong, if it's not the right thing, you need to say it, because your job is not to massage the ego of any management person or even your chairman. Your job, though, is to be polite, professional, firm, and fact-based on the contribution that you want to make. And if you see it going the wrong way, remember that you have liability. And if in those minutes it says that you agreed with everything and just went along with the flow and they made the wrong decisions, you have liability. So I've been in board meetings when I say, excuse me, I'd like to minute this, please. And people think it's very odd, but I understand director liability. And if it's the wrong decision, I am not there. And I need to know that I was not one of the people who made that decision. And I think the last thing I would say is when you go into that boardroom, you go in, as she said, with your experience, and it has value. And you are in many ways one amongst equals, you know? And so they should be listening to what you have to say, but each word should count, right? And I'll give you a vignette. I was on a board with the B of Onitsha. And I am the daughter of a traditional ruler that he knows very well. And he always used to call me Adeze. And I remember once going to a board meeting, and I was wearing a trouser suit, and I went to greet him before. He says, Adeze, you don't enter a king's palace wearing trouser. I said, sorry, sir. And he laughed. And then we went into the boardroom, and I changed my posture, because guess what? I was no longer in the king's palace. I was in the boardroom. He respected that fact. It was a little joke. Before we go into boardroom, Adeze. When we get into the boardroom, Ms. Edozien, what would you like to say? And your members have to recognize that, you know. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, what a way to round up. Our time's up, and I think every single thing has been discussed. So let's thank our amazing speakers. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you so much for all the practical points. I'm sure that we are all now board ready.